The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury has left the WNBA staring down its harshest reality yet. The league that pinned its entire surge of relevance, revenue, and recognition on one young superstar now finds itself scrambling, exposed by its own failures. What was marketed as the season of Caitlin Clark, the year the WNBA finally broke through into mainstream conversation, has instead become a cautionary tale of negligence, greed, and short-sightedness. Clark's body didn't betray her on its own. The WNBA betrayed her by refusing to protect its most valuable asset, and in doing so, it may have irreparably damaged the trust of the very fans it courted. From the first tip-off in May, the writing was already on the wall. Clark was a target every time she stepped on the floor. Screens turned into moving walls. Jerseys were grabbed, arms pulled, hips checked, and more often than not, the referees stared blankly ahead. Fans saw it in real time. Clark stumbling after being shoved off a cut, crashing to the hardwood after being blindsided, struggling to fight through bodies before she even touched the ball. And possession after possession, the whistle never came. It wasn't one team taking liberties. It was the entire league. Clark, the Rookie of the Year, the two-time All-Star, the face of every promotional campaign, became the punching bag of a league that seemed determined to test just how much abuse one player could take. And it wasn't just physical. It was psychological. Opponents laughed after knocking her down. Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky seemed to revel in the flagrant fouls, smirking at the cameras as Clark picked herself off the hardwood. By the end of her rookie year, Clark had absorbed 20% of the league's flagrant fouls. Think about that. One player accounting for a fifth of the most dangerous contact in the sport. That's not competition. That's negligence dressed up as toughness. In any other workplace, those actions would lead to suspensions, even arrests. In the WNBA, it became part of the nightly highlight reel. The consequences weren't immediate, but they were inevitable. What began as a quad strain in May metastasized into a groin issue by June, worsened into a tear by July, and eventually cascaded into a bone bruise by August. These weren't freak accidents. They were the compounded result of playing through constant uncalled contact. Every time Clark landed awkwardly after being shoved midair, every time she twisted into a screen with no space to recover, her body paid the bill. And because the league never gave her the cushion of officiating protection, that bill came due after just 13 games. Fans aren't stupid. They knew something was wrong long before the official announcement. Clark was day-to-day so often it became a punchline. Each time she was listed as questionable, the word precautionary was slapped on like a band-aid. But what did precaution mean in practice? It meant Clark taping up her body, limping through warm-ups, and logging 30 minutes the same night. It meant promising fans she was fine while grimacing through cuts and drives that once looked effortless. It meant squeezing every ounce of revenue from ticket sales, jersey orders, and TV broadcasts before admitting the truth. She wasn't coming back. That truth landed with the thud of betrayal. Clark's statement was heartfelt. She admitted she'd spent hours every day in the gym chasing a return that wasn't possible, confessed that disappointed isn't a big enough word for how she felt, and thanked fans for never leaving her side. She framed it as a personal failure to recover. But everyone else knew better. This wasn't her fault. This was a league that chose to run her into the ground instead of protecting her, like the generational investment she is. And when it came time for the league to respond, the commissioner herself failed the test. Kathy Engelbert's statement sounded like it had been drafted by a corporate lawyer rather than the leader of a league in crisis. She praised Clark's contributions, highlighted continued growth, and promised resources moving forward. What she didn't do was acknowledge the elephant in the room, that referees had failed to protect the most important player in the sport, and that this failure had directly contributed to her collapse. It was vague, sanitized, and tone-deaf, exactly what fans feared most. The backlash was swift and brutal. Social media erupted with demands for refunds, screenshots of canceled ticket orders, and open calls for boycotts. All-Star tickets that had been fetching $200 on resale markets dropped below $60 overnight, a collapse that underscored just how much of the WNBA's momentum was tethered to one player. Sponsors, TV networks, and arenas that had built entire campaigns around Clark suddenly found themselves with nothing but angry customers and empty seats. Even more damning was the way Engelbert's silence about officiating made fans feel gaslit. It wasn't just that Clark was out. It was that the commissioner refused to admit the obvious, that Clark's injuries weren't just bad luck, but the predictable outcome of unchecked targeting. When asked directly about officiating issues, Engelbert dodged with a canned response about all sports dealing with it. For fans who had watched Clark shoved, grabbed, and hammered without protection for months, it was an insult. They weren't asking for perfection. They were asking for accountability, and that's the crux of the WNBA's crisis now. Fans bought in because Clark represented something new. Her game wasn't just good, it was electric. She pulled up from deep like Steph, dished with flair, and brought a charisma women's basketball desperately needed. She was the first star whose style felt modern, flashy, marketable to audiences beyond the die-hard base. But instead of nurturing that, the league let her get mauled. They protected revenue, not the player. And now, they're paying the price. Television ratings have dipped since her injury. Attendance in road arenas has cratered. Sponsors are quietly panicking. And the fever pitch of excitement that marked the beginning of the season has been replaced by resignation and rage. Fans aren't just disappointed. They feel conned. They bought tickets under the impression Clark would return, only to learn she was never close to healthy. They invested in a league that sold them hope, only to realize the people in charge were stringing them along for profit. The ripple effects are devastating. The Indiana Fever, stripped of their centerpiece, now cling to playoff contention while half their roster limps through injuries. Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston grind nightly. Lexi Hall plays through black eyes and bloody lips, but the shadow of what could have been hangs heavy. And without Clark, the narrative shifts. Instead of being about growth and breakthrough, the WNBA is once again a league defined by its failures to protect its stars. The tragedy is that this didn't have to happen. Protecting Clark with fair officiating, cautious rest, and transparent communication could have preserved her season. Instead, she became the symbol of everything the league mishandled. And while she'll recover and return in 2026, the damage to the WNBA's credibility may take far longer to heal. So now the question becomes, what happens next? Will the league finally acknowledge its failures and make real changes to officiating, player safety, and transparency? Or will it keep hiding behind growth reports and sponsorships while its most loyal fans walk away? Because here's the truth. Caitlin Clark's season didn't just end. It exposed the WNBA's fragility. Without her, the league isn't ready for prime time. And maybe that's the most damning part of all. One player carried the WNBA to relevance. One injury carried it back into chaos. The league wanted to ride Clark's wave without ever protecting her from drowning. And now, fans are asking the same question over and over. Is the WNBA even worth investing in if it can't take care of its brightest star? Let me ask you, do you believe the WNBA has only itself to blame for Caitlin Clark's collapse? Should fans boycott until real accountability is delivered? Drop your thoughts down below and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss an update. This story is far from over, and the fallout may reshape women's basketball forever.